Welcome to Pivot with Greta Scholes, a conversation with business executives and the effects of change. Welcome to Pivot by Greta Scholes. Today, I am talking to Cherilynn Castleman, who is such a cool person. I met her several months ago at a sales seminar we were doing, and I think you guys are going to absolutely love listening to her story and what she's doing and what she's achieving. Really cool. A lot of times I will give a little bit of an intro about a person, but I'm going to let her do it because there's a lot of stuff in her background that she's done that's been really cool. So, Cherilynn, let us know, what kind of where you came from and what brought you to today.
Hi, Greta. Thanks. I'm thrilled to be here. Greta, I have been in sales since before Girl Scout cookies were 50 cents a box. So probably since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And I always tell people, don't count on your fingers. Any way you look at it, it's a long time. And I also have over 30 years of experience as a Fortune 500 global sales executive. And so a few years ago, I read an article where they interviewed the only African-American female CEO of a Fortune 500 company in 65 years. It was Ursula Burns, and they asked her why there weren't more women of color in the C-suite. And she said, communications won't get you there, marketing won't get you there, the arts won't get you there. Women have to learn to get close to the juice. And she went on to explain that the juice was product and money. And a light bulb came on because, Greta, that's what sales is. It is the juice. It is product and money. And so, Greta, what I want to see 1 million women of color by 2030 sit at the table of their dreams. And by the table of their dreams, I mean the C-suite, sales leadership, top of the leaderboard, or their own entrepreneurial table. The problem is that so many of these women like me lack the financial fluency to get there or access. So that's why I spend my days today coaching and training Black and brown women to be too good to be ignored so that they can sit at the table of their dreams.
I love that. So I want to talk about how you're doing that, how you're reaching people, what are you teaching them, all of that. Back up a little bit, though, because in reading a little bit about you, it was a very, very interesting, like where you, when you were in college, you got a job as a debt collector, like, shoot me, that's a really difficult job. You did that, you then later worked for American Express and came up with a wonderful plan for them. They turned it down. I mean, there was just so many cool things along the way that really were stopping you from doing what you wanted to do. And you said you wanted to help. You wanted to be financially independent. You wanted to be financially prosperous. You had a family. But when you are, social work is something that doesn't pay you a lot of money, right? And you said, well, I love doing that and helping people, but I want to be financially independent and comfortable. How do I connect that? So talk a little bit about that. That's a really interesting ride, I think.
Absolutely. So I started my career in social work, and I had a caseload of women who had committed manslaughter against their own children for failure to protect them from their partners or their dads. And I realized that we needed United Way funding, and I learned very quickly that in order to get United Way funding, it was about sales, and I had to sell my program. I was able to secure funding, and I thought, wow, if I could master sales, I could be really good in nonprofit. And the only job I could get was actually selling on a debit. So a debit is not debt collection.
Oh, it's not debt collection.
No, it is. It was how life insurance was offered to rural people who were rural or inner city. And what it was is people would hang an envelope on the door, and you'd knock on the door and you say, "Insurance man," is what you said. And you would go in and you would take 50 cents or a quarter or $1 out of the little envelope, and that paid their burial plan. And so you just went door to door and you collected. And if there was a neighbor who moved in who didn't have insurance, you sold them a burial plan. And so you sold, a $1,000 policy or a $2,000 policy. And so that was the only job I could get. Is they gave me a big blue book about this thick, and every page was a client and you went to the door and you wrote in 25 cents or 50 cents or $1, that was my first sales job other than Girl Scout cookies. And I was a Girl Scout for 30 years, so I did that a long time. And from there, I ended up moving to Europe and selling and working for American Express and selling to expats, Americans in Europe. And I was a top general agent there and built out a team with about 50 reps. And when the Gulf crisis started, I moved back to the States and wrote a business plan to bring financial services to African Americans in Atlanta. And I was with American Express.
American Express, not.
This was for
okay.
American Express, and I submitted it to them, and I wanted to do that. And American Express said, "No, we're not interested in moving that direction." Prudential said yes, and so I moved to Atlanta, and I started doing workshops and teaching African American, primarily women, about financial planning, financial services. Once again, went to the top of the leaderboard. And the Olympics came to Atlanta and disrupted everything. So being the adventurer that I am, I took my girls and moved to Guatemala for a year so that I could do an immersion with them and have them learn a language and just another adventure. When I returned, I took a job at a hospital where where managed care was disrupting their revenue. And I was able to take a $600,000 cost center to a $3.2 million profit center by putting a sales structure in place. And then moved into SaaS, into life science and healthcare, and spent my career selling SaaS into life science and healthcare companies.
Wow.
So
that's so incredible. I mean, I was reading about it. I'm like, I won't be able to communicate this, especially because I had debt instead of debit, right? I can't communicate this properly. She's going to have to communicate this. It's an unbelievable ride to get to where you are. So talk a little bit about your initiative, and then I want you to talk also about, like, on your website, your pivotal times, that you talked about. I'm sure that was a COVID, but talk about that a little bit, and then your initiative.
All right. So currently my vision is by 2030 to reach 1 million Black and brown women. And I'm doing it in 3 ways. So first of all, I have a coaching and training practice. So I coach and train women either to move into sales as an SDR, move up in sales as enterprise sales, move into sales leadership as a chief revenue officer or a VP of sales. And one of the biggest things that I coach women on is 2 things. 1, getting out of their own way, removing those self-limiting beliefs. 2, finding their superpowers and leveraging them to build relationships. Because as you know, sales is about relationships. And so that's what I help women do. And then the second thing I do is companies hire me to coach and train Black and brown women so that they can retain them, so that they can anchor them to the company, so that they can move them forward. For example, I worked with T-Mobile. They gave me 6 women. They promoted 4 of them at the end of the program. One of them is one of the top sales leaders. She's number 2 in the country from T-Mobile for business in sales now. She was nowhere near there before the coaching and training. So they move into either sales leadership or company leadership. And so they spend 6 months doing group coaching, individual coaching, and training. And so I'm doing that for Experian and T-Mobile and a couple other companies.
Amazing.
And then I also do keynote speaking and training. And I'm a Salesforce influencer, and I work with LinkedIn. So anywhere that I can get my message out, I'm getting my message out. And
Absolutely.
I always laugh that people would say, well, Cherilynn, will you come speak at our sales kickoff? But we don't have a lot of Black and brown women. And I said, yeah, I can teach all sales leaders to be better sales leaders. I can help them recruit, retain, and attract Black and brown women, because a recent study by both Harvard Business Review in 2020, May of 2020, says that women are the future of B2B sales. Women outperform men by about 8%. And then I worked on a study with LinkedIn, with Forrester, a diversity study that identified that companies that have diversity initiatives outperform companies that don't. So I help managers recruit, retain, and elevate diverse sales professionals. So those are the 3 initiatives.
Excuse me. Sorry, getting over a cold, as I had told you. It's interesting to me. I guess what I'm trying to, it's black and brown women, and then it's women, is what we were talking about. I think the reason that women, tell me if you think I'm right or wrong, I think the reason women are moving into the sales arena, a lot of reasons, but one of them is sales today is all about relationships, like we were talking about.
Absolutely.
And listen, it's not that men don't know how to, build a relationship. They do, but it's just innate in women, I think. And so I think it's a little bit more natural for them, since it is so much more about relationships as opposed to, selling a vacuum cleaner to your mom, at the front door. Years ago, sales was you go in, you do a pitch, and you try to close and try to close and try to close. That's what it was back then, and I suppose that's what worked. But there's a much more sophisticated atmosphere today, and I think women have a bit of a leg up with most men, not all men, but most men, because they have that natural, caring, nurturing. I think that's part of that.
It is. And so there's two things there. So first of all, I realized that when I learned to sell, I was taught spend 20% of your time focused on building a relationship and 80% of your time selling. Well, when we come out of this pandemic, I realized, what if we flip that? Because everything we know about our clients, every single person in the world has been impacted by this pandemic. So what if we flip that? What if we spent 80% of our time building a relationship and then 20% of our time solutioning? And so for me, that was a pivotal moment that I started coaching and training and talking to my clients about, how do you connect with people? How are you an empathetic listener? How are you compassionate? How do you collaborate? How do you connect with their communication or their social style? Those are things that are important, because if you don't pick up on what's going on in the world, what they're afraid of, what feelings they're having, what their values are, given the internet, most buyers have already done the research. They know what they want. They know about product. They don't need a subject matter expert. What they need is somebody to solution with them. And so women, and like you said, innately, we are nurturers. If you look back and a lot of reading that I've been looking at, it just makes sense. Women sit in circles and we took care of the children, and it was a way how we protected each other and looked at our backs as we sat in a circle. Whereas men went out and hunted, and they had to be quiet when they were hunting. And so men were quiet. They didn't build their communication skills. And over time, women have. And so can men learn that? Absolutely. I mean, people tease me all the time. They said, so Cherilynn, are you trying to say men need to learn to sell like a woman? I said, or you just need to hire more women. So you decide. So that was one critical thing, was that the pandemic has changed everything. So we as salespeople have to change.
Well, I think, and you had mentioned that about flipping the 80-20, which is brilliant, because I think what we do, I mean, I'm sure I'm guilty of it as well, being in sales my whole life. If things change, what you need to say is, okay, let me look 10,000 foot view, and let me figure out, what to do differently, or what to do. And we either try to reinvent what we're already doing, or we take what we're doing and we just push it harder, right? The 80-20 rule, 80%, selling. Well, I'm going to keep doing that then. Well, no. Right. I mean, I think it was really insightful to say, no, we have to change this. We already know our clients. They know us. There's issues that they're having inside of their companies that maybe we don't solve with this, but maybe we can help them get there. And then we secure the relationship. I think that's so important. And I mean, for one, I don't think I thought that either. I mean, I think during the pandemic, I had clients that were with me through it, thank goodness. But I think the idea of going out and selling was like, well, I can't do that now. But I also didn't nurture the clients that I had in the past. And I mean, it's very smart. And to be able to reinvent that and do it differently is not something everybody has the ability to do. So it's really very smart.
So absolutely. So just kind of a tip for your audience.
Yes.
Just remember that, we're moving into a hybrid environment. So some people are at work, some people are working from home. Yep. Some people are virtual some days, working, remotely, or some people in the office. So whether you're speaking to someone in the same room or the other side of the planet, remember, it's all about communication and connection.
Yeah.
And so, we spend a lot of time on good internet connection. I was looking at your tips and sound quality and microphones, and that's all important. But we as women sales professionals, we need to project competence. So act the same way as you would live and in person as you would virtual, when you're virtual.
Yes.
So establish your credibility, be warm, show your human side, and most importantly, be authentic. And I talk a lot about what authenticity is and being, just being yourself, and be vulnerable, even a little awkward, because people want to connect with human beings, not robots.
Absolutely.
And that's what's so important.
I think you're so right. And, and again, I'm not trying to compare men to women, but we're talking about women. Men have, not all, but again, men have a feeling like they have to know everything and they have to be in charge of everything. And women, one of the advantages I think we do have, and maybe they misunderstand that in business they don't utilize this, but women really have the, you know what, I don't know. I'll have to check and I'll find out for you. But women that ability to be a little vulnerable does make them human. And I think today in sales and relationship building, it's about the human factor, because you made a really good point. If I want to know all about your product or your service, not only can I go on your website, I can Google it, I can look at a million reviews. There's tons of ways I can find out all about the features and benefits of your product or service. Unimportant. Right. And if you're going to sit with me and you're going to, as we affectionately call, show up and throw up, I'm not interested. I could have read that. I'm doing this if that's what you're doing to me. So I think it's really, really important to understand the relationship. Also, the one thing that I think most people don't understand is when they hear the word relationship, they associate it with friendship. Friendship is not what we're talking about. Sometimes we gain friendships out of building relationships. But I think what happens to us, Cherilynn, and tell me if you agree, I think what happens is a lot of us in sales started out in sales because somebody along the way said, you got a good personality, you should be in sales. So, they went to school and they went and learned a craft and they started at a company and they said, I can sell anything. People love me. And that is relationship building, but they don't understand that relationships aren't necessarily about being their buddy and taking them to lunch and learning about their children. Not that those things aren't important, but a relationship is built by the questions you ask and the depth of the question and the understanding of what's going on, so you can then recommend a solution. You can be much more solutioning if you truly know what's going on. And I think that's one of the things that most salespeople don't understand, women or men, I think just in general. And that's such an important quality, is that inquisitiveness, asking questions, that type of thing.
Absolutely. And so one of the things, you're absolutely right. One of the things that I tell clients is it's about understanding. And so I talk about, most companies have these discover questions with how much do you want to spend and who are the decision makers and how long is your buying process? And I said, that's fine. I said, but let's back up a little bit and understand them. And I have them start with the 4 F's. And the first F is first. What was it? Everybody has a first.
Love this. I'm going to write it down.
Okay. So the first is, what was it like the first time you came home and had to call in a client with your kids in the office with you? Or what was it like the first day you were back in the office? Everybody has a pandemic or a post-pandemic first. Ask them about that first. It's a way to connect and understand about what's going on.
I love that.
For me, when I first started doing training and coachings virtually, I wish somebody would have called and asked me, and I don't know, Greta, about you, but what was your first training like virtually? It was horrible.
Horrible.
It was, and people would call me and say, oh, I can coach you on doing great virtual training. And I said, I wish somebody would have asked me, what was your first one like? You get so much understanding having somebody talk about any first. New manager, first day on the job. So ask the first question.
Love
the
that.
second F that you want to ask is finest. All of us are getting something right. So Greta, what are you doing well? So since you've come back with your team, what are you getting right? Or when it comes to managing your data since the pandemic, what are you getting right? Every company, every person has a finest, something they're doing right. The third F is failure. Now, if you don't want to ask the client, what are you failing at? The way that I ask is, What do you wish you could do better? So when it comes to your data, when it comes to training, when it comes to leading your team, whatever it is that you're selling, what are you failing at? What do you wish you could get better? And the final F is future. So now you talked about what it was like in the first, what they're doing well. Then the next one is what do they wish they could do better, what they're failing at. And the final F is future. And one of the ways that I ask it, which people say is hokey, but I'm telling you, I have asked the president of one of the top health insurance companies in the world, if I gave you a realistic magic wand, what would your future look like a year from today? And I would say, Greta, it is August 31st, 2023. And I gave you a realistic magic wand, what would it look like?
You know, it's so funny. I asked that same question, that second one, same one.
Okay. And so that's what I asked. And so now you have all this information, and now somebody wants a solution with you. You understand where they are.
I love the idea of kind of past and future, if you put that into it. That's such a good idea. And within that, you will also find out things like, you know, what is their pain? Who else is involved in budget?
Right.
I mean, those things are important, don't get me wrong, but you know, we've so been taught to say this and then this and then this. No, it's all part of a conversation. But that lets you really engage with somebody. I love that. And I've asked that question for a long time. You know, like let's say we're sitting here on, you know, whatever date, September 1st, whatever, you know, it is at that moment, 2023. And you say, this was such a successful year. What would have had to happen in the last 12 months to have you say that? And then all the things they say, those are the indicators of where you need to lead them. And I mean, I think that's so important. Yeah.
It is. And so then you're solutioning with them because you know their vision, you know what they started, and you know what they're doing well and what they wish they could do better. Now you're not selling, you're solutioning. And so that's what understanding is. That's what the relationship is. And if we listen rather than wait to talk, we will connect with them and we will hear those things. And so listening, better questions, and so empathetic listening, better questions, and focusing on collaboration and relationships. And so that was kind of my aha moment when the pandemic happened, is everybody has changed.
Yeah.
We have, as salespeople, we have to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge. So the initiative that you have with the black and brown women, tell us how we can help you with that. We can get involved. We can spread the word. Tell us about that. Okay.
So the easiest way is just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You will see on LinkedIn, I have, there's a link that you can join, hashtag 1M women by 2030.
If you send it to me, I'll put it on the end of this and people can see.
Okay. I will do
perfect.
that. I will add that. I will send that to you right
Good.
now. And so that is the best way to join. If you want to learn more about how you can recruit, retain, or elevate Black and brown women in your organization, you can also we can also connect with me, and I can share that information with you. But a quick, easy way, and it's a challenge, and this is a challenge that I call out to every time somebody is listening or reading anything that I put out. I just say, here's my challenge. I want you to go out and connect with 5 to 10 people on LinkedIn who don't look like you. I don't care if they're older than you, younger than you, a different race, different religion, or a different sex than you are.
Okay.
So many times, everybody in LinkedIn looks just like we do. And so if you just start building out your diversity, and then once you connect with them, engage in their content. Don't just like it. I mean, comment about it, ask questions, share it, engage in their content, so that when you need to recruit hires or hire somebody, you have established a network. It's like, don't wait until you need somebody. Don't wait until you're hungry to plant the garden. Go out and start building a diverse network. Then you can recruit people. Number 2, if you want to retain people, say, I see you. And there's 4 ways to say, I see you. Number 1, I see you as a person. Greta, I see you as a person. I see that you have a family. I see that you know, that you have a long commute. I see you as a person. Number two, I see the value you bring to our organization. I see that big deal you close. I see that you are leading. I see that you are mentoring your peers. And the third one is I see you in my future. I want to be COO one day, and I see you leading the enterprise team. I see you being an SDR manager. I see you at the top of the leaderboard. See them in your future. Let them know that you see them. And finally, see them on social media. A lot of times we don't say thank you. We don't acknowledge the hard work. We don't acknowledge the vulnerability. We don't acknowledge the growth. So shout them out on social media, shout them out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and say, Greta has done a great podcast. Check this out. Greta has been has closed this great deal. We're so proud of her. Greta has overcome her fear of speaking and presented to the team and did a great job. These are great ways to see somebody. And what I hear from my clients is my manager doesn't see me.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you want to retain them, see them.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm absolutely sure that's what it is because we talk about communication so much and, communication, our understanding of that because of kind of how we grew up, understanding is, communication is let me tell you something. And that is the least most important part about communicating. So. Look, I could talk to you all day long. We could go on for another hour, but we won't. But we could. So thank you so much for your insights today. I'll put your information on the podcast when I put it up. I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you, Greta. And meeting you has been an absolute delight. And I'm so thrilled that we were able to have this conversation.
Me too. I've met some very cool people, recently. And, when you get to be a little older and you know a lot of people, you're like, and then you meet new people and you go, wow, there's some really cool people out there that I don't even know. So that's what you're saying about connecting to people that don't look like you. You have to do that. It's amazing what you learn.
Absolutely. So thank you again. Thank you to your audience for accepting my challenge and bye.
Absolutely. Don't hang up yet. I got another question for you. Bye-bye.
Okay.